Hey guys, Bingocat here, and today we will be taking a look at the Google Huawei Nexus 6P smartphone. So this phone originally came out on September 29th, 2015, and was the first Nexus phone designed by Huawei. Originally, the phone shipped with Android 6.0 Marshmallow, but it can be upgraded to Android 8.0 Oreo. So I bought my personal Nexus 6P in October of 2016, a little over a year after the Nexus 6P was originally released, because I wanted to try out owning a phablet or a bigger phone. Before my Nexus 6P, I had never owned a really big phone before, and by October of 2016, you could get the 128GB Nexus 6P for under $600. The other phone that I was considering getting at the time was the Samsung Galaxy Note 7, but due to the reported fire and explosion problems of the Note 7, I stayed clear of the Note 7. So after the Note 7, I started eyeing the Google Pixel XL, but decided against it mainly due to the price of the Pixel XL. Plus, the hardware of the Pixel XL was so similar to the Nexus 6P anyways, that I decided I might as well pick up the Nexus 6P instead. Now, some people's Nexus 6Ps have aged horribly, with reports of the battery cutting out and boot loops, but my phone has had neither of these issues, yet. The other main reason I upgraded phones at the time was that I wanted a phone with more RAM. Before the Nexus 6P, I owned a Nexus 5X, which was and is a pretty decent phone, minus all the boot loop issues that you read about. But it only had 2GB of RAM, which I felt was too little RAM for what I wanted to do with my phone. The 6P's 3GB of RAM isn't that much more than the 5X's, but luckily it did the trick, and I have had minimal issues with multitasking on my Nexus 6P. So regarding the specs of the Nexus 6P, it has a 5.7-inch AMOLED display with the resolution of 1440 by 2560 with 518 ppi density. It has Corning Gorilla Glass 4, and it originally came with Android 6.0 Marshmallow, but can be upgradable to Android 8.0 Oreo. The chipset this phone uses is a Qualcomm SMN8994 Snapdragon 810 with an octa-core CPU, and this GPU this phone has is an Adreno 430. It does not have a microSD card slot, but you can get 32GB of storage, 64GB of storage, or 128GB of storage with 3GB of RAM. And the model I have has 128GB of storage. The back camera is 12.3 megapixels with f2.0. It has laser autofocus, dual LED flash, and the back camera can also record 4K video in 1080p at 30 FPS. The front-facing camera is 8 megapixels with f2.4 aperture, and it can record 1080p at 30 FPS. It comes with 802.11 AC Wi-Fi, it comes with Bluetooth 4.2, and it has a USB Type-C 2.0 port, and this phone also has a headphone jack. You don't see that in all modern smartphones nowadays. So now that we got all the specs and crap out of the way with, let's go ahead and take a look at the actual build quality of the phone. So the front, you got your 1440 by 2560 AMOLED display with dual speakers, and of course you got your front-facing camera over there at the top left. Looking at the back of the phone, it uses a dual glass aluminum design like the Pixel phones, except the glass on the back of this phone is a lot smaller. Now, you got a camera hump here, which I originally didn't like too much, but I actually don't mind it now. I think it makes this phone look unique. You have the Nexus logo right here, and then if down here you got a Huawei logo. I don't know if you guys can really see that, but you got Huawei logo down there. And then, of course, you got your dual flash, the back camera. You also got your back microphone over there. You got a fingerprint reader placed in a decent spot on the back where, you can actually reach it and where it won't scuff up the camera lens if you decide to use it and you accidentally miss the fingerprint reader and you hit the camera instead, like on the S8. So at the bottom of the phone, you got a USB Type-C port. Top of the phone, you got a headphone jack. You don't exactly see that in modern smartphones as much anymore. So regarding the build quality on this phone has held up fairly well in my opinion. The glass in the front has virtually no scratches on it. If you turn the phone to the back, the only scratches and scuffs you see on it are down here. This got scuffed up a little bit. Then there's some scuffs right here, but it's my fault. I used this phone without a case for like 8 months, so yeah, that's what happens when you don't protect your phone. Now, the only part about the design of this phone that I didn't really like was that it's not water and dust resistant, but that's fine, I guess. I mean, not too many phones back in 2015 had dust and water resistance. Phones only really started adding dust and water resistance in 2016, but if you're using a phone in 2017, I think having dust and water resistance is a plus. The other thing I'm not too big of a fan of regarding this design is you have your power button and you have your volume rocker on the side over here. I think the volume rocker should have been in a higher spot. You know why? Because I have a little dock I like to place my phone in the car, and guess what? I can't put it into the dock without the dock side accidentally hitting the volume rocker. So if I want to be ultra petty, you know how I said that I actually kind of like the design of the camera hump? At the same time, I don't like it. I think the back of the phone should be perfectly flat, to be honest with you guys. I am not a huge fan of camera humps or bumps. At least they stretched the hump across the entire back of the phone, unlike, let's say, an iPhone, where if you put your phone down flat on the table, it will be wobbly because of the camera bump. Also, another thing I don't like about this phone is that there's no removable battery. I think every phone, especially higher-end phones, which back at the time this was released, this was a higher-end phone, should have a removable battery. If it means sacrificing the premium build quality on the back for something like plastic, so be it. I think phones should be designed to last as long as possible and not designed for you to have to replace it after only a year or two because the battery has gone to crap. Now, the battery, by the way, in this phone, for the year I've owned this phone, the battery life is actually still pretty good, so I'm kind of happy that the battery life has held up fairly well on this phone. Usually, if I unplug this phone from the charger in the morning, it will last me the whole day, and I'll still have maybe 16-15% charge left. I very rarely run out of charge, even if I don't charge this phone during the middle of the day. Now, another thing I don't like regarding the build of this phone is it does have a USB Type-C port, but it's unfortunately only a USB 2.0 port and not a 3.0 or 3.1 port. And not only do you get slower data transfer speeds, you also can't output video through this port, which is kind of disappointing. I mean, I'm more of a one to just wirelessly cast any video that I have that I want to play on my phone to my TV through a Chromecast or something like that, but still kind of disappointing that this port can't output video like other USB Type-C ports. The back camera is fantastic. You can't really tell that the pictures you take on this phone is from a phone. It's that good. Now, one thing I was disappointed with in this phone is that there's no optical image stabilization. Instead, you get electronic image stabilization, just like on the original Google Pixel phone. And you know, it works, but it still would have been nicer to have optical image stabilization. But once again, although there are some quirks with the design of this phone that I don't like, it is an overall really well-built phone. I like the way the back of this phone looks and feels. It feels premium, it looks premium. The front of this phone, although technically it's not up to 2017 standards because it has larger bezels, I don't really give a crap about large bezels on phones, and a smaller bezel phone wouldn't make me want to upgrade. I am completely fine with the larger bezels, I just ignore them. So let's go ahead and turn this phone on. So the first things first is I actually rooted this phone. Now, the reason I rooted this phone was because this phone does not have a blue light filter. For those of you who don't know, blue light emitting from displays can mimic the light from the sun. And so staring at a display at night that's emitting a ton of blue light is bad for your sleep. It can mess up your circadian rhythm. So What they do on a lot of newer phones, like on the newest iPhone, the newest Samsung Galaxies, is they include a blue light filter, which unfortunately this phone does not have. And even though Google now integrates the blue light filter right into the latest Android operating system versions, they don't give you the option to enable it on the Nexus 6P, which kind of sucks. And the only way around this to get a true blue light filter for Android is to root your phone and install Flux, which I did. I rooted using Magisk, which, by the way, if you are rooting your phone, I highly recommend using Magisk. Magisk allows you to use things like Android Pay while still allowing your phone to be rooted. It is pretty nice. I'm going to go ahead and type in my super secret passcodes and we'll be back. So regarding the software of this phone, it is running Android 8.0, and since this is a Nexus phone, it is of course running clean, pure, stock Android, which is really nice. I prefer clean, pure, stock versions of Android compared to other versions of Android, like the version of Android that Samsung puts on their phone. Samsung puts so much extra crap regarding the software on their phone, which I don't prefer. I prefer to have as little features in the operating system as possible and just download an app if I need extra functionality, because it makes the device run smoother. And that is one of my favorite things about this phone. It is really smooth. There is virtually no lag when doing anything, despite the fact that this phone originally came out 2 years ago. Like if I press apps, it immediately goes to the App Store. By the way, this thing originally came with Google Now Launcher. Unfortunately, you get no update to the Pixel launcher. If you want the Pixel launcher, there's ways to get it. But I just downloaded Nova Launcher. That is my preferred launcher. It is super customizable. It behaves exactly the way I want it to. So just to prove it to you guys, this phone is running Android 8.0.0. So yeah, once again, overall performance on this phone is fantastic. I feel virtually no lag at all. The only thing that I would complain about regarding system performance is some of the newer games honestly just aren't smooth experiences on this phone. You can play them, they just aren't smooth experiences on this phone. Also, some apps with a lot of animations like Snapchat, for instance, it'll lag just a little bit. You see how I'm in Snapchat here? If I swipe to the right here, it was kind of smooth, but sometimes it's jerky. It's a little bit jerky scrolling down here. Maybe it's just Snapchat. Now the speakers on this phone, by the way, are once again fantastic. Here's a little demo for you guys to hear. Video quality on this phone is also pretty fantastic. Like if I were to open up one of my own videos, let's go ahead and just turn off the sound here. As you can see, it's a 16:9 aspect ratio, and let's go ahead and change the quality to 1440. Now, something I forgot to mention earlier was that this phone does support fast charging. It doesn't support Qualcomm Quick Charge, even though it has a Qualcomm chipset in there. It supports some other rapid charging method using USB Type-C, but it really does work. Like, let me show you guys. Now, once you plug in your phone and you go to the lock screen, at the bottom there, it will say it is charging rapidly. If it just says charging, your phone is not fast charging. If it says charging rapidly, your phone is fast charging. However, if it says it's charging slowly, yeah, that's a problem. Anyways, guys, those were my thoughts and my review of the Nexus 6P. Would I recommend buying the Nexus 6P in 2017? Yeah, probably, but only if you could find one for cheaper. Unfortunately, I've just read too many stories about the Nexus 6P's battery life just going to crap, and also heard stories of boot loop issues. But if you can find one for relatively cheap, maybe like $300 or less, I would definitely recommend buying it. The other thing that concerns me about the Nexus 6P nowadays is I don't think 3 gigabytes of RAM is enough in a smartphone anymore. I mean, it still works for now, but if you want to future-proof your phone, which I know future-proofing never works, but if you want to avoid having your phone feel slow only after a year or two, I would get a phone with at least 4 gigabytes of RAM. But overall, I'm still very satisfied with my Nexus 6P, and I still think it is a very good phone. In fact, this is the first phone that I think I've ever gotten in a long time that I have felt no need to upgrade after a year with it. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and please check out my Twitter, Instagram, and Discord linked down below in the video description. As always, I thank you guys for watching. Goodbye.